Ambassador Sarah Chen walked through the massive halls of Nexus Prime. Her boots made soft sounds on the crystal floor. Around her, beings from 1,000 worlds moved with purpose. Some floated in energy bubbles. Others had tentacles that rippled through the air. A few looked almost human, but their skin glowed with inner light. Sarah had seen this sight many times before. Each visit filled her with the same mix of wonder and sadness. Wonder at the amazing diversity of life in the galaxy. Sadness because humanity was not truly part of it. She reached the council chambers and waited. The doors were 50 feet tall and made of some material that shifted colors like oil on water. Through the transparent walls, she could see the Grand Galactic Council in session. Representatives from major civilizations sat in floating chairs that moved through 3 dimensions. Their voices created a symphony of clicks, whistles, and harmonic tones. The Zephyrians spoke in colors that painted the air. The Quantum Lords existed in multiple dimensions at once. The hegemony delegates had bodies made of living metal that reformed as they talked. All of them commanded fleets that could reshape space itself. Sarah looked down at her simple tablet, computer. It contained humanity's latest application for council membership, the same application they had submitted every year for the past 50 years. The same application that would be politely declined with the same form letter. Insufficient technological development, the letter always said. Limited resource control. Primitive faster-than-light systems. Application denied pending advancement. Review. The great doors opened with a sound like singing crystals. Sarah walked into the chamber. The council chair, a being that looked like a tree made of starlight, acknowledged her with a brief nod. Ambassador Chen of the Terran Confederation, the chair announced. You may present your petition. Sarah had given this speech many times. She talked about humanity's growth, their peaceful expansion to 47 star systems, their advances in medicine, art, and philosophy. She mentioned their willingness to contribute to galactic peace. The council listened politely. Some delegates checked their quantum displays. Others had private conversations through telepathic links. A few seemed to be sleeping, though with alien biology, it was hard to tell. When Sarah finished, the Zephyrian delegate spoke. His words appeared as golden symbols in the air. Humanity shows promise, the symbols said. But your technology remains limited. You cannot manipulate exotic matter. Your ships still use primitive fusion drives. Your weapons are based on simple nuclear reactions. The Quantum Lord representative phased into the conversation. Your species lacks dimensional awareness, she said. You see only 3 spatial dimensions. You cannot fold space or exist outside normal time flow. These abilities are basic requirements for advanced civilizations. Sarah had heard these words before. She gave the standard human response about growth potential and unique perspectives. The council thanked her for her time. They would review her application and respond within the standard galactic year. As Sarah left the chamber, she passed a group of young delegates from the Stellar Collective. They whispered among themselves in a language that sounded like music. Humans, one said with amusement, still trying to play with the big species. Their ships can barely reach light speed, another added, and they think they belong in the council. I heard their homeworld still has separate nations that fight each other, a third said. How primitive. Sarah kept walking. She had learned long ago not to respond to such comments. Humanity had to prove themselves through actions, not arguments. Back, on Earth, Captain Marcus Rivera stood on the bridge of the TCS Defiance. The ship was humanity's pride, a dreadnought that had taken 10 years to build. Its armor was made of the strongest materials human science could produce. Its weapons could crack small moons. Its engines could push the ship to 3 times light speed. By human standards, the Defiance was a miracle of engineering. By galactic standards, it was barely worthy of notice. Marcus looked at the tactical display showing the Kepler sector. 47 human colonies spread across 32 light years. Each world held millions of people living their lives, building their future. They looked to ships like the Defiance to protect them. "Captain," his communications officer called. "We're receiving the weekly intelligence briefing from Fleet Command." Marcus nodded. The briefing was always the same. Reports of alien fleet movements far beyond human space. Wars between species that could destroy stars. Political conflicts involving powers that humanity could barely understand. "Anything that affects us directly?" Marcus asked. "No, sir," the officer replied. "The galaxy continues to ignore human space. We remain outside all major conflicts and trade routes." Marcus had mixed feelings about this isolation. It kept humanity safe from galactic wars. But it also meant they had no allies, no advanced technology, no voice in galactic affairs. If something terrible happened, humanity would face it alone. Lieutenant Commander Elena Vasquez approached. She was the ship's science officer and one of the smartest people, Marcus knew. "Captain," she said quietly, "I've been analyzing the latest galactic news feeds. There are rumors of something stirring in the galactic core. Ancient warnings being activated, deep space sensors detecting unusual energy patterns." Marcus frowned. "What kind of patterns?" "The reports are vague," Elena replied. "The Council species don't share detailed information with lower-tier civilizations like us. But from what I can gather, something very old and very dangerous might be waking up." Marcus stared at the star map. Human space sat on the galaxy's outer edge, far from the populated core worlds. If something dangerous emerged from the galactic center, it would have to pass through thousands of advanced civilizations before reaching human territory. "Keep monitoring the situation," he ordered. "If there's a real threat, the Council species will handle it. They have weapons that can unmake reality itself." Elena nodded, but Marcus could see doubt in her eyes. She was thinking the same thing. He was. What if the Council species couldn't handle it? What if something came that was stronger than their reality-warping weapons and dimensional shields? That night, Marcus stood in his quarters looking out at the stars. Earth hung in the distance, a blue jewel in the cosmic dark. 47 human worlds, 8 billion people, all protected by ships like the Defiance, with their primitive weapons and basic armor. He thought about Sarah Chen on Nexus Prime, making her yearly request for recognition. He thought about the alien delegates laughing at humanity's simple technology. He thought about Elena's worry and the rumors from the galactic core. Maybe it was better to be ignored. Maybe being small and unnoticed was humanity's greatest protection. The galaxy was full of ancient powers and terrible weapons, wars that could destroy entire star systems, conflicts that had lasted for millions of years. But as Marcus looked at Earth, he felt something stir in his chest. Pride, maybe, or stubbornness. Humanity might be small and weak by galactic standards. Their ships might be slow and their weapons primitive. But they were still here. Still growing, still reaching for the stars. The galaxy could ignore them all it wanted. Humanity would keep building, keep exploring, keep trying to prove themselves worthy. And if something terrible did come from the dark between stars, humanity would face it the only way they knew how, together, with whatever they had, no matter the odds. Deep in the galactic core, ancient machines stirred to life. The Void Nebula had been a forbidden zone for 3 million years. Warning beacons in 100 dead languages marked its borders. Even the oldest Council species spoke of it only in whispers. The nebula itself looked empty to most sensors, just cosmic dust and weak radiation. But those who looked deeper could see the truth. Massive structures floated in the dark, ships the size of moons, silent and cold. They had been waiting. On the monitoring station at the nebula's edge, Archiver. Kethra watched his instruments with growing alarm. The Etherean's crystalline body pulsed with nervous energy. For 200 years, he had maintained this lonely post. Nothing had ever happened. The ancient warnings spoke of sleeping death, but the sleep had seemed eternal. Now everything was changing. Impossible. Keth Ra whispered, his words creating rainbow patterns in the air around him. The energy readings were off the scale. Power, signatures that belonged to legends, not reality. Heat blooms the size of stars, gravitational distortions that bent space itself. Deep in the nebula, something vast was waking up. Keth Ra sent an emergency transmission to the Grand Council. His message traveled through quantum tunnels and hyperspace relays, reaching Nexus Prime in minutes. But by the time it arrived, other reports were already flooding in from across the galaxy. The Devourers were returning. In the council chambers, panic replaced the usual calm discussions. The chair being's starlight body flickered with distress. Ancient records were pulled from quantum storage. Military commanders appeared as holographic projections. Species that had been enemies for millennia suddenly found themselves allies again. The containment fields have failed, reported Admiral Zenth of the Hegemony Fleet. His metal body sparked with electrical discharge. 3 million years of imprisonment, and now they break free. How many ships? Asked the Quantum Lord representative. Sensors can't get accurate counts, Zenth replied. The energy interference is too strong, but preliminary estimates suggest thousands, maybe tens of thousands. The council chamber fell silent. Even the Zephyrians stopped their color speech. Everyone knew the stories. The Devourers had once consumed entire star systems. They turned planets into energy and matter into fuel for their endless expansion. It had taken the combined might of 50 galactic civilizations to stop them. Most of those civilizations no longer existed. What of our defenses? The chair being asked. Surely our technology has advanced since the ancient war. Admiral Zenth's body dimmed. We are stronger than our ancestors, yes, but so are they. The Devourers adapt. They learn. Every weapon we used against them 3 million years ago will be useless now. The first attacks came within days. A small, Devourer scout ship emerged from the nebula and approached the Kepler 7 system. The local defense fleet moved to intercept it. 12 modern council ships with reality-warping weapons and temporal shields. The battle lasted 3 minutes. When the energy cleared, the scout ship remained intact. It had absorbed every attack and grown stronger. The 12 defense ships were gone, their matter converted to pure energy. The scout ship transmitted its findings back to the nebula and vanished into hyperspace. Within hours, larger Devourer forces began emerging. Harvester ships the size of cities moved through space like living things. They consumed everything in their path. Asteroids, comets, space stations, entire moons. All became fuel for their expansion. The Grand Council mobilized every fleet they had. The most advanced ships in galactic history moved toward the core. Vessels that could fold space, manipulate time, and rewrite the laws of physics. Weapons that could destroy dimensions and armor that existed in multiple realities at once. It wasn't enough. The Devourers had evolved during their long imprisonment. Their adaptive systems now worked faster than ever. They analyzed each attack and developed counters within minutes. Reality-warping weapons were absorbed and redirected. Temporal attacks were reversed back at their users. Dimensional shields were simply ignored. Admiral Zenth watched his flagship, the Pride of Hegemon. In the void, the massive dreadnought had been the pinnacle of military technology. Its quantum cannons could unmake matter itself. Its armor existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. The Devourer harvester ship tore through it like paper. All ships retreat. Zenth ordered over the fleet channel. Around him, the greatest armada in galactic history broke apart and fled. Behind them, devourer ships spread through space like a plague. The news reached every world within hours. The devourers were free. They were stronger than before, and they were coming. On Nexus Prime, Ambassador Sarah Chen watched the emergency council session from the observation gallery. She had never seen the great powers so afraid. Species that controlled the fundamental forces of the universe huddled together like frightened children. "We need time," the Quantum Lord representative was saying. "Time to study their new abilities. Time to develop new weapons." "There is no time," Admiral Zenth replied. "They advance on 1,000 fronts. Every ship they destroy makes them stronger. Every world they consume gives them more resources." "What about the Outer Rim territories?" asked a Zephyrian delegate. "We could establish fallback positions there." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The Outer Rim was where humanity lived. The Council was already talking about retreat to human space. They would bring their war with them, turning humanity's worlds into battlefields. In the depths of space, the Devourer fleet grew larger every hour. Ancient ships that had slept for eons now pulsed with new energy. Their hulls absorbed starlight and converted it to power. Their weapons learned from every battle. At the fleet's heart floated the command, Nexus, a structure larger than most planets. Within its quantum processors, the Devourer consciousness planned its campaign. It remembered the ancient war. It remembered defeat and imprisonment. Most of all, it remembered hunger. The galaxy held billions of worlds, trillions of life forms, countless sources of energy and matter. All of it would feed the swarm's growth. The young races had forgotten the lessons of the past. They had grown soft and complacent behind their advanced technology. They would learn again what it meant to face true hunger. The first major world to fall was Crystallia, home world of the Etherians. Its population of 8 billion had mere hours to evacuate. Refugee ships fled into space as devourer harvesters descended from orbit. The planet's crystal cities, built over millions of years, lasted minutes against the swarm. When the feeding was complete, Crystallia was gone, not destroyed. Consumed, every atom converted to energy and stored in the harvester's quantum cores. Where a world had been, only empty space remained. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. The hegemony worlds, the stellar collectives' trade hubs, even the heavily defended fortress worlds of the Quantum Lords. All fell before the endless hunger. Refugee fleets clogged hyperspace routes. Entire civilizations packed their lives into transport ships and fled toward the galaxy's edge. The great powers that had ruled space for eons became homeless wanderers seeking safety in the outer darkness. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Marcus Rivera watched the intelligence reports with growing horror. Elena Vasquez stood beside him, her face pale with shock. "How many worlds?" Marcus asked. "Over 300 confirmed lost," Elena replied. "Probably more. The communication networks are breaking down as the Devourers advance." Marcus stared at the tactical display. Red zones marked Devourer-controlled space. They covered almost a third of the galaxy now and were expanding rapidly. Refugee streams moved toward the outer rim like rivers of light. "Captain," his communications officer called. "We're receiving a priority message from Fleet Command." The hologram of Admiral Harrison appeared on the bridge. The old man looked exhausted. Behind him, Marcus could see the chaos of the emergency command center. "Marcus," the Admiral said, "we're implementing Contingency Plan Omega. All ships are to fall back to the Sol defense perimeter. We're preparing for siege conditions." Marcus nodded grimly. Plan Omega meant humanity was preparing for the worst. Earth would become a fortress. The colonies would be abandoned if necessary. Humanity would make its last stand in their home system. "What about the refugees, sir?" Marcus asked. "The alien fleets fleeing the core worlds?" Admiral Harrison's expression hardened. "Not our problem, Captain. We warned them this day might come. They chose to ignore us, to treat us like children. Now they can face the consequences alone. Transmission ended, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts. Through the view screen, he could see distant stars. Some of those stars no longer existed. The Devourers had consumed them, along with everything else in their path. Humanity had 47 worlds and 8 billion people. Their ships were primitive, by galactic standards. Their weapons were simple nuclear devices. Against the force that was destroying advanced civilizations, they had almost nothing. But they were still human. And humans had never learned how to give up. The refugee convoy was massive beyond belief. Thousands of ships from dozens of species fled through space in a desperate stream of light. Transport vessels carried entire cities' worth of people. Cargo haulers held the cultural treasures of dead worlds. Medical ships tended to the wounded and dying. Captain Marcus Rivera watched the convoy through the Defiance's sensors from 30 light-years away. His orders were clear. Maintain position at the edge of human space. Protect the colonies. Do not engage alien forces or get involved in galactic conflicts. But the convoy was heading straight into disaster. Captain, Lieutenant Commander Elena Vasquez called from her station. I'm picking up Devourer signatures ahead of the convoy. Looks like scout ships have flanked the main battle lines. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. The convoy was trapped. Between advancing Devourer forces and the binary pulsar system of Kepler 442, the pulsar's intense radiation made hyperspace jumps impossible. Normal space engines would take days to clear the system. The refugees didn't have days. How many Devourer ships? Marcus asked. Elena checked her readings. At least 6 harvester vessels, probably more hiding in the pulsar interference. Each. One is the size of a small moon. Marcus did quick calculations in his head. The convoy's escort consisted of maybe 50 ships from various council fleets. They were already damaged from running battles during the retreat, low on ammunition. Many were operating on skeleton crews. Against 6 fresh Devourer harvesters, they had no chance. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're receiving a general distress call from the convoy. They're requesting assistance from any ship in range. Marcus looked around his bridge, his crew of 200 humans, his ship with its primitive weapons and simple armor. What could they do against enemies that had destroyed the galaxy's greatest fleets? Captain, Elena said quietly, the convoy is carrying civilians, millions of them. Men, women, children from dozens of worlds. Marcus nodded. He had seen the sensor readings. Massive passenger ships built for luxury travel, now packed with refugees. Family transports designed for short hops between planets, stretched to their limits. Even crewed escape pods holding a handful of survivors each. All of them would die. When the Devourers arrived, "Get me Admiral Harrison," Marcus ordered. The hologram appeared within minutes. The Admiral looked even more tired than before. "Marcus, I hope you're not calling to request permission for something stupid." "Sir, there's a refugee convoy trapped in the Kepler 442 system. Devourer forces are moving to intercept. Millions of civilians will die without help." Admiral Harrison shook his head. "Not our problem, Captain. These are the same species that have ignored humanity for centuries. Let them solve their own crisis." "They can't solve it, sir. Their escort fleet is too weak. We're the only ship in range." "One human ship against Devourer harvesters?" Admiral Harrison laughed bitterly. "That's not heroism, Marcus. That's suicide. I'm ordering you to maintain position and defend human space." Marcus felt anger rise in his chest. "So we just watch them die? Millions of innocent people?" "Those people never cared when humans died," the Admiral replied. "Their governments called us primitive. Their militaries ignored our offers of assistance. Why should we sacrifice ourselves for them now?" The transmission ended before Marcus could respond. Around him, the bridge crew stared in silence. They had all heard the conversation. They all knew what their orders were, and they all knew what Marcus was going to do anyway. "Elena," Marcus said quietly, "plot a course for Kepler 442, maximum speed." Elena's fingers flew over her controls. "Course plotted, Captain. ETA 4 hours at full burn." Marcus looked around the bridge one more time. "Anyone who wants to transfer to the shuttle bay can do so now. This is probably a one-way trip." Nobody moved. "Very well," Marcus said. "Take us in." The Defiance turned away from human space and accelerated toward the trapped convoy. Behind them, other human ships received orders to intercept and stop them. But the Defiance had a head start, and Marcus knew his ship better than anyone. As they traveled, Marcus called his senior officers to the briefing room. Elena brought tactical data. Commander Jackson, his weapons officer, carried reports on their ammunition stores. Chief Engineer Sarah Walsh had power distribution charts. "Let me be clear," Marcus began. "We're heading into a battle we cannot win. The Devourers have destroyed fleets 100 times more powerful than us. Our weapons are primitive. Our armor is basic. We will almost certainly die." "Then why are we doing this?" asked Commander Jackson. Marcus thought about the question. Why were they doing this? The refugees had never helped humanity. Their governments had ignored human requests for decades. Their people had mocked human technology and culture. "Because it's right," Marcus said finally. "Because millions of people are about to die, and we're the only ones who can help them. Because if we don't try, we can never call ourselves human again." Elena nodded slowly. "What's the plan, Captain?" Marcus brought up the tactical display. "The convoy is trapped between the pulsars and the Devourer forces. They need time to clear the radiation field and make hyperspace jumps. We're going to buy them that time." "How?" asked Sarah Walsh. Marcus pointed to the narrow space between the two pulsars. "We position ourselves here. Force the Devourers to come through us to reach the convoy. Make them fight for every mile." Commander Jackson shook his head. "Captain, our weapons can barely scratch their hulls. Their adaptive systems will counter everything we have within minutes." "Maybe," Marcus agreed. "But maybe not. The Devourers have been fighting advanced enemies, ships with reality-warping weapons and dimensional shields. They might not be prepared for simple, crude tactics." Elena studied the sensor data. "You want to fight them like pirates. Hit-and-run attacks. Ramming maneuvers. Improvised weapons." "Exactly," Marcus said. "We can't match their technology, but we can be unpredictable. We can be desperate. We can do things no sane military would attempt." The meeting broke up with everyone understanding their roles. As the crew prepared for battle, Marcus stood alone on the bridge. Through the view screen, he could see the distant glow of the Kepler 442 system. Soon they would be there. Soon they would face the enemy that had conquered the galaxy. A message came in from the refugee convoy. The transmission was weak and broken, but Marcus could make out the words. "Unknown human vessel, this is Fleet Admiral Korthak of the Hegemony Defense Force. We have detected your approach vector. You must turn back immediately. This is a battle you cannot win." Marcus keyed his response. "Admiral, this is Captain Rivera of the Terran ship Defiance. We're coming to help." "Captain Rivera, I appreciate the gesture, but your ship is not equipped for this fight. The Devourers will destroy you in minutes. Save your people. Return to your territory." Marcus smiled grimly. "Admiral, humanity has never been equipped for any fight. We do it anyway." The next message came from a different source, a Zephyrian transport captain whose words appeared as silver text on Marcus's screen. "Human captain, why do you come to die for strangers? Our species have never been friends. We have ignored your people for centuries." Marcus thought about his answer carefully. When he replied, he spoke not just to the Zephyrian, but to everyone in the convoy who might be listening. Because someone has to stand in the fire, he said. Because running away only works until you run out of places to run. Because maybe, if we're lucky, one human ship can remind the galaxy what it means to fight for something bigger than yourself. The Defiance reached the edge of the Kepler 442 system and began its final approach. Ahead, Marcus could see the refugee convoy spreading across space like a city of lights. Behind the convoy, dark shapes moved through the cosmic radiation. The Devourers were coming. Marcus settled into his command chair and watched the tactical display. 6 confirmed harvester ships, each one capable of destroying fleets. Against them, 1 human dreadnought with nuclear weapons and kinetic shells. The odds were impossible. The battle was already lost, but that had never stopped humanity before. "All hands, battle stations," Marcus announced over the ship's communication system. "This is the Defiance. We stand between the darkness and the light. Today, we remind the galaxy what humans are made of." The Devourer harvesters emerged from the pulsar radiation like monsters from a nightmare. Each ship stretched for miles, their hulls covered in adaptive armor that shifted and flowed like liquid metal, energy weapons that could unmake matter itself charged along their flanks. They moved with the terrible grace of predators that had never known defeat. Captain Marcus Rivera watched them approach on his tactical display. 6 massive vessels against his single ship. The math was impossible, but Marcus had stopped caring about math. "Range to lead harvester?" he asked. 200,000 kilometers in closing, Elena reported from her sensor station. "They're moving in formation. Looks like they want to surround the convoy." Marcus nodded. The Devourers were being cautious. They had learned to respect even inferior enemies after 3 million years of war. But their caution would work against them today. "Helm, take us directly at the lead ship." "Full speed, sir." The helmsman turned in surprise. "That's a collision course." "I know," Marcus replied calmly. "Weapons, prepare all forward nuclear torpedoes. Set them for maximum yield and contact detonation." Commander Jackson looked up from his weapons console. "Captain, our nukes won't even scratch their hulls." "They're not meant to," Marcus said. "Elena, what's the composition of those adaptive hulls?" Elena checked her readings. "Exotic matter suspended in a quantum field matrix. They absorb energy attacks and redirect kinetic impacts." "Perfect," Marcus smiled. "They're designed to handle advanced weapons. Let's see how they deal with good old-fashioned human stupidity." The Defiance accelerated toward the lead harvester at full burn. The massive Devourer ship began to turn, bringing its primary weapons to bear. Energy beams that could split planets lanced out across space. Marcus watched the beams approach on his screen. Evasive maneuvers. Random pattern. The Defiance twisted and spun through space like a dancer. The Devourer's targeting systems, designed to track ships that moved in predictable patterns, struggled to lock on. Most of the energy beams missed. The few that connected splashed harmlessly against the human ship's primitive armor. "How are we not dead?" Jackson asked in amazement. "Their weapons are too sophisticated," Elena explained. "They're designed to penetrate dimensional shields and reality barriers. Against simple steel and ceramic, they're actually less effective." Marcus grinned. "Sometimes being primitive has its advantages. Weapons, fire all torpedoes." 20 nuclear warheads streaked toward the harvester ship, the Devourer's defensive. Systems activated, creating energy fields that should have vaporized the incoming missiles. Instead, the simple fusion bombs punched right through the exotic defenses and detonated against the hull. The explosions were massive, but as expected, they did no real damage to the harvester. The adaptive armor absorbed the energy and began to strengthen itself. Within seconds, the ship was actually more resistant to nuclear attack than before. "Captain, our weapons had no effect," Jackson reported. "They weren't supposed to," Marcus replied. "Helm hard to port. Bring us around for another pass." As the Defiance turned away, the harvester ship pursued. Its adaptive systems had analyzed the human attack and developed countermeasures. The next nuclear salvo would be completely useless, but Marcus wasn't planning another nuclear salvo. "Sarah," he called to his chief engineer over the comm, "I need every spare ton of metal we have loaded into the cargo bay. Steel plates, spare parts, kitchen utensils, everything." "Sir," came the confused reply, "just do it, and rig the cargo bay doors for explosive opening." Marcus turned back to his tactical display. The harvester ship was gaining on them, its massive bulk moving with surprising speed. Behind it, the other 5 harvesters were spreading out to surround the refugee convoy. "Elena, can you jam their communication systems?" "Their quantum links are too advanced for our equipment," she replied. "But I might be able to create some interference with a broad-spectrum transmission." "Do it. I want to blind them to each other for as long as possible." The Defiance came around in a wide arc, using the binary pulsar's radiation to mask its approach. Marcus watched the convoy on his sensors, thousands of ships packed with millions of refugees. They had started their escape burn, but it would take hours to clear the radiation field, hours they didn't have. "Captain," Elena called, "the lead harvester is changing course. It's moving to intercept the convoy directly." Marcus made his decision. "Helm, ramming speed. Intercept course for the harvester." The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what Marcus was ordering: a direct collision between their ship and the massive Devourer vessel. It would be suicide. "Sir," the helmsman said quietly, "are you sure about this?" Marcus looked around his bridge one more time. 200 humans who had volunteered for a mission they knew would kill them. His crew, his family, his responsibility. "Yes," he said, "I'm sure." The Defiance accelerated toward the harvester ship. This time there was no evasion, no clever maneuvering, just a straight line toward the enemy vessel's flank. The harvester's weapons fired continuously. Energy beams designed to destroy reality itself struck the human ship again and again. But the Defiance's simple construction worked in its favor. The exotic weapons were like using a precision laser to cut wood. They made holes, but they couldn't stop the ship's forward momentum. "Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7, damage control reported. "Engineering section compromised. We're losing atmosphere." "Seal what you can," Marcus ordered. "All hands, prepare for impact." At the last second, Marcus triggered the explosive release of the cargo bay. Tons of scrap metal erupted into space, directly in front of the harvester ship. The Devourer's adaptive armor was designed to handle energy weapons and exotic matter. It was not prepared for a cloud of kitchen knives, steel plates, and spare reactor components moving at near light speed. The improvised shrapnel tore through the harvester's forward sections like bullets through paper. Its adaptive systems tried to compensate, but there were too many different materials moving in too many directions. The armor couldn't adapt fast enough. A second later, the Defiance itself slammed into the harvester's wounded flank. The collision was tremendous. The human ship's bow crumpled like tissue paper. The harvester's hull split open, venting atmosphere and coolant into space. Both ships tumbled away from each other, trailing debris and energy discharges. But somehow the Defiance was still intact. Badly damaged, but still fighting. "Report," Marcus called out through the smoke and sparks. "Forward sections are gone," Sarah Walsh reported from engineering. "We've lost main power. Weapons are offline, but the reactor's still stable," Marcus looked at his tactical display. The harvester ship was wounded but not dead. Its adaptive systems were already repairing the damage. In minutes, it would be back to full strength, but minutes were all Marcus needed. "Elena, are the other harvesters moving to assist?" "Negative, sir. My jamming is still working. They don't know what happened to their lead ship." Marcus smiled through, the blood running down his face. "Then we hit them one at a time. Sarah, I need auxiliary power to the engines." "Captain, we can barely move. One more collision will destroy us." "Then we better make it count," Marcus replied. Target the second. Harvester. Same tactics. What followed was the most desperate hour of combat in human history. The crippled Defiance limped from enemy to enemy, using every dirty trick Marcus could think of. They rammed ships with cargo containers full of radioactive waste. They detonated their own torpedo magazines inside enemy hulls. They used the binary, pulsar's radiation, to cook harvester ships from the inside. The Devourers adapted to each attack, but always too late. Their sophisticated systems were designed to counter advanced tactics, not the insane desperation of humans with nothing to lose. One by one, the harvester ships fell. Not destroyed, but damaged enough to slow their pursuit. The refugee convoy used the precious time to escape the radiation field and make hyperspace jumps to safety. When the last civilian ship vanished into hyperspace, the Defiance was a wreck. Half the ship was gone. Most of the crew was dead or dying. The remaining systems were failing one by one. Marcus sat in his command chair watching the tactical display. The damaged harvesters were regrouping, their adaptive systems finally understanding human tactics. Soon they would finish what they had started. Captain, Elena called weakly from her station. We did it. The convoy escaped. All of them. Marcus nodded. Through his view screen, he could see the empty space where thousands of refugee ships had been. Millions of lives saved, entire civilizations given another chance. It had cost them everything, but it had been worth it. All hands, Marcus announced, over the ship's communication system. This is your captain. Today we showed the galaxy what it means to be human. We stood between the darkness and the light. We held the line when nobody else could. Whatever happens next, remember that we made a difference. The harvesters moved in for the final attack. But before they could strike, new contacts appeared on the tactical display, ships dropping out of hyperspace around the battlefield. Not Devourer vessels, but something else entirely. The cavalry had arrived. The ships that dropped out of hyperspace were not human. They came from every corner of the galaxy. Hegemony dreadnoughts with their living metal hulls, Zephyrian light cruisers that painted space with color, Quantum Lord vessels that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Even proud stellar collective battleships had abandoned their trade routes to come here. Captain Marcus Rivera watched them arrive through the smoke and sparks of his dying bridge. Dozens of alien warships, all converging on the Kepler 442 system. All coming to finish what one human ship had started. Captain, Elena called from her damaged sensor station. I'm reading over 60 vessels. All major species are represented. Marcus tried to smile, but his face was too numb from blood loss. Looks like word got out. Indeed it had. Across the galaxy, the story was spreading faster than hyperspace communications could carry it. A single human ship had stood against impossible odds, had saved millions of refugees that humanity had no obligation to protect, had proven that courage could triumph where advanced technology failed. The alien fleet wasted no time. They fell on the damaged Devourer harvesters like wolves on wounded prey. But this time, they fought differently. Gone were the sophisticated energy weapons and reality-warping attacks. Instead, they used kinetic rounds and explosive charges, simple, crude weapons that the Devourers couldn't easily adapt to. They had learned from watching the Defiance fight. Admiral Korthak of the Hegemony Defense Force opened a communication channel to the human ship. His metallic voice crackled through the static. Captain Rivera, this is Admiral Korthak. We have medical ships standing by to assist your crew. Marcus keyed his response with shaking hands. Admiral, what are you doing here? Your orders were to retreat to defensive positions. Orders change, Captain. After watching your battle, the Grand Council called an emergency session. Your actions here have been broadcast across every inhabited world. The galaxy has seen what one human ship could accomplish. Through his view screen, Marcus watched alien medical shuttles approaching the Defiance. Ships that had never responded to human distress calls were now racing to save human lives. The irony wasn't lost on him. We couldn't leave you to die alone, another voice said. This one belonged to a Zephyrian fleet commander. Her words appeared as golden symbols on Marcus's display. You saved people who had never shown you kindness. You proved that honor still exists in this galaxy. The battle for the system was quickly decided. The damaged harvesters, facing fresh enemies using their own crude tactics, retreated back toward the galactic core. It was the first time Devourer forces had been driven from a battlefield since the war began. But the real victory was happening elsewhere. On every world, in every system, the story of the Defiance was being told. How a primitive human ship had stood alone against the galaxy's greatest threat. How Captain Rivera and his crew had sacrificed everything for people they barely knew. Recruitment centers across human space were flooded with volunteers. Young humans lined up to join the fleet, inspired by stories of the battle. But more importantly, alien species were asking questions. If humans could fight like this with primitive technology, what might they accomplish with better equipment? On Nexus Prime, Ambassador Sarah Chen stood before the Grand Council once again. But this time, she wasn't presenting another application for membership. This time they had called for her. Ambassador Chen, the chair being said, its starlight body pulsing with emotion. The Council wishes to formally apologize for our treatment of humanity. We were wrong to dismiss your people as primitive. Sarah nodded gracefully. Thank you, Counselor. But apologies aren't necessary. Humanity didn't fight for recognition. We fought because it was right. Nevertheless, the Quantum Lord representative said, the Council votes to grant immediate full membership to the Terran Confederation, with all privileges and responsibilities thereof. A cheer went up from the observation galleries. Representatives from hundreds of species applauded the decision. But Sarah held up her hand for silence. The Council's offer is appreciated, she said. But membership comes with conditions. Humanity will not simply be absorbed into existing power structures. We demand equal representation on all military planning councils. We insist on technology, sharing agreements, and we require formal guarantees that human military doctrine will be studied and implemented across all allied forces. The Council agreed without hesitation. Within hours, human officers were being transported to fleet commands throughout the galaxy. Human tactics were being analyzed and distributed to every military academy. The crude, desperate fighting style that had defeated the Devourers was becoming standard doctrine for all allied forces. Back in the Kepler 442 system, the Defiance was being evacuated. The ship was too badly damaged to repair, but its crew would live. Advanced alien medical technology was healing injuries that would have been fatal with human medicine alone. Marcus Rivera was among the last to leave his ship. He stood on the bridge one final time, looking at the view screen that now showed a fleet of alien vessels. Ships from across the galaxy, all working together to fight a common enemy. Captain, Elena said, her arm in an alien healing brace. The evacuation shuttle is ready. Marcus nodded and took one last look around. The bridge where 200 humans had made their stand against the darkness. The place where they had proven that courage mattered more than technology. Goodbye, old girl, he whispered to his ship. You did good. The war against the Devourers continued for months, but now the galaxy fought with new tactics. Human-style boarding actions replaced energy weapon duels. Ramming attacks and improvised weapons became standard procedure. Most importantly, the concept of fighting hopeless battles simply because they were worth fighting spread throughout the Allied forces. The Devourers, for all their adaptive abilities, couldn't adapt to pure determination. They had evolved to counter advanced technology, not raw courage. Ship after ship fell to desperate attacks that no rational tactical computer would attempt. The tide of war slowly turned. Captain Marcus Rivera stood on the bridge of the new TCS Defiance, a ship built with the best technology the galaxy could provide. Human engineering combined with alien science had created something unprecedented. but the ship's name and purpose remained the same. Around him, his new crew worked at their stations. Humans and aliens serving side by side, sharing knowledge, tactics, and most importantly, the understanding that some fights were worth any sacrifice. "Captain," his new communications officer called. She was a young hegemony officer who had requested transfer to serve under Rivera. "We're receiving a distress call from the Procyon sector. Civilian ships under attack by Devourer scouts." Marcus smiled. The same smile he had worn that day in the Kepler 442 system. The same smile that had become famous across the galaxy as the symbol of human determination. "Set course for Procyon," he ordered. "Maximum speed." The new Defiance turned toward the crisis, carrying with it the hopes and dreams of 1,000 species. Behind it followed a fleet of allied ships, all commanded by officers who had learned to fight like humans, to stand between the darkness and the light, to hold the line when nobody else could, to prove that sometimes the most primitive weapon was the one thing no enemy could defeat, a heart that refused to give up. The war would continue. There would be more battles, more sacrifices, more desperate stands against impossible odds. But the galaxy would never again be the same. Humanity had shown them something they had forgotten in their technological advancement. That courage, determination, and the willingness to sacrifice for others were the most powerful weapons of all. And in the deep of space, where the Devourer fleet retreated toward their ancient strongholds. Artificial minds struggled to understand what had changed. Their adaptive systems could counter any weapon, absorb any energy, redirect any attack. But they could not adapt to the simple human belief that some things were worth dying for. That alone made all the difference.